So in this segment, we're going to be talking about terminal operators charging more in different kinds of customs fees to make up for the money they lost thanks to Jacob Rees-Mogg. So this was about when ports were getting ready for the physical inspections to happen, so they had more staff lined up, contracts, etc., and physical border posts made, which aren't going to be used now because of Jacob Rees-Mogg's U-turn. And they are not happy, and they're charging apparently more in customs fees in order to recoup the money. So UK ports have begun charging, quote, customs clearance fees in what a source claims is an effort to recoup the lost money in investment in border control posts due to delays in the SPS procedure. So essentially they were getting ready for all the physical checks to happen. You need a lot more infrastructure in order to do that, and then the UK said, actually, we're not doing that, pal. That's a big problem. So ports in London, Southampton, Teesside and Tilbury are levying the new fees ranging from £17 to £25 per entry. DP World London and Southampton are applying fees of £11 per removal, so they're applying around 20 quid to enter and around 11 quid to leave by the looks of it. And the thing you got to remember is all of these costs are passed on to the consumer. All of this stuff is passed on to the consumer. The source told the Lodestar, in reality, it is BS money-making exercise as there are no examinations. It's probably aimed at recovering port development costs. So essentially, there's no work actually happening here by the looks of things. It's just them charging money for the sake of it in order to recoup costs that they've lost thanks to the government. Now, there were talks that the ports will take legal action against the government over the lost money. I don't know if that's happening now. They're paying £6,000 a month, without ever having an examination. It's fair to charge one per box, but not one per entry. Smaller players with smaller loads are picking up the lion's share of costs. So they might have a smaller load, so because it's per entry, they'll have more entries, and they'll be paying a lot more for those entries. So instead of charging per box, they're charging per entry, which this person has an issue with. Sources suggest the percentage of shipments undergoing examinations is less than 1%, one claiming not a single examination in the whole of 2021. So this is clear money-making exercise here. Despite anger at the level of the charges, there seems to be unanimity that ports are due recompense after the government announced that at the end of April it would be scrapping implementation of the SPS controls in July. So essentially ports are trying to get their money back somehow, and this is the only way that they can do. The news left ports furious after having spent millions developing border control posts to conduct the planned checks. So they built physical infrastructure, comes out a lot of money. The government didn't fund this. They had to fund this themselves, and they were going to recoup the costs from traders, but that's not happening now. Port of Liverpool supposedly spent £4 million on its border control post, and a source in the port told the Lodestar news of the new port fees raised issues around the need for a bigger conversation at the government's last minute U-turn. And the thing is, if the government never intended to do physical inspections, they should have told the ports. But it looks like it was a last minute change that Rees-Mogg essentially got over the line, purely because the cost for imports would have gone up dramatically because of physical inspections. One source said, "We need to know what the government is going to do after it largely pulled the rug on a network of brand new high-spec border control posts that look unlikely to be used and cost ports millions." Let's not forget that this stuff was meant to go live in January. The government announced it last month, which was May, I think it was, May or April. So they were already in the process of getting all this stuff built, and now they can't even use it. Another source said they had been planning to introduce a fee in line with the planned checks to cover the costs of the White Elephant border control posts, but that shippers were in a better position than they could have been, and that's because of the fact that there's no physical inspections, no SPS checks. Ports will need to recover the border control post maintenance and skeleton operating costs somehow, so I wouldn't be surprised if charges are passed on to traders or the shipping industry, the source told the Lodestar, and then those are then passed on to the consumer. So the more money they're trying to recoup from these traders, these shippers, etc., is more money going to be passed on to the consumer, because that's ultimately the ones who pay for the end cost. But remember, importers are still in a better position, not needing to pay around £1.2 billion in annual fees had SPS checks come in, and that would have been £1.2 billion the British consumer would have paid in more for goods. £1.2 billion just for the SPS checks. That's a cost of Brexit in itself. That's wild. And the cost to staff these would have cost way more than the money we paid into the EU's budget, for example. So that just shows you how expensive Brexit is in itself, just for this aspect. Forget the financial services, which we've lost massive amounts of money on. This here is a major story, and it would have cost the British taxpayer a lot of money, the British consumer, sorry, a lot of money for physical checks to happen. But the fact that the government didn't sort this out quicker means that ports spent a lot of money on these border control posts, and they're going to have to recoup the money somehow. It's just a sad state of affairs when a country can't figure itself out. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.